Well, JimPAnimation, you decided to ask me why I animate in Krita and not, say, OpenToonz or whatever. And I've sort of tried to create a video to talk about that, even though recently I covered it in a video called Animate in Krita Why. So go back and watch that video. I want to tell you this. The shot that I just did, this one right here, I actually took the art and cut and pasted it from Krita into Tahoma just so I could use the plastic tool here. And suffice to say that because Tahoma's got some bugs, some of the hotkeys are both bizarre on the one hand and not able to be properly customized on the other for reasons I won't get into. You have to go kind of deep with the program to realize how many problems there are. So if I'm going to deal with OpenToonz, generally I'm using OpenToonz, not Krita. I mean, not Tahoma. But I do like the fact that you can cut and paste. But the bottom line is, here's a shot that took about 40 minutes that if I'd have done the whole thing, if I'd have just done it in Krita, it would have taken me 10 minutes. So you're just going to have to take my word for it. There are absolutely downsides to working in Krita, but on balance, for me, the way I work and with what I'm doing, it's no contest. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, let's see here. I'm going to start out with this shot, and I'm going to remove frame and pull. Okay, so that brought this back to, whoops. Let's expand that out a little bit. Okay. I want to look at my storyboard and kind of see what's going on here. So this is going to be shot 251, and what's actually going to happen is, yeah, as you can see, we're really just going to be picking up from the same shot we were at a moment ago, with the only change being the expression in his eyes, which we will steal from this close-up right here. Okay, and then what we're going to do is add to this shot the monkey kind of dancing around and doing his thing. So he's going to pop up here on the screen, and then he's going to pop up here behind the laundry basket as if to say peekaboo, and at that point Mel's going to turn, leap at the monkey, and then we've got a bunch of farcical stuff that happens as a result. So now the question becomes, I removed all these intermediate frames from the previous shot that used the same layout, and now what I want to figure out is what I need to get rid of and what I need to keep. And the basic concept was I deleted all the frames but not the first one, because if there's a layer in here that never got animated, then if I deleted everything including the first frame, I'd be getting rid of some of the content of my scene. So you can kind of see what needs to happen here. I need to grab this one, this one, then I'm going to hit Control, grab those, and that one. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same thing again, remove frames and pull. That just does a ripple edit for me. And so now I'm ready to go. Okay, so now monkey, he's not going to be in the basket, he's going to be behind it on the next shot. So I'm just going to delete all these keyframes, and there is no monkey in the scene at this point. And for this shot, okay, I'm going to go ahead, and since he's all on one frame anyway, I'm going to go ahead and merge the group. So I'm going to grab this group that has all of Mel's layers, like his, his arms, his shadows, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just going to hit Control E, and that just merged it all into one group. The ink bottle needs to not be in the shot because it already bounced out of the shot previously. And these ink stains can be baked into Mel as well. So I'm again hitting Control E. The book will leave on its own layer. Monkey's on his own layer in background. So we've reduced this to four layers. So there's an example of why I like Krita. Merging all of those frames or all those layers into, you know, like baking them down. To do the same thing in OpenToonz would have been, well, you'd have had to actually render out a still frame of just the character layers, all the characters' layers, like his shadow and whatever. You would have to render out that frame after turning off the background, and then take the rendered frame and drag it back into OpenToonz in a new layer. That's pretty much how you'd have to do it. So this matter of baking things down and keeping it efficient, you know, right now this scene is only 32 megabytes, is, you know, requires a bunch of steps in OpenToonz versus click, 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 done in Krita. It's just what I've been finding, you know, over and over. So the only thing you're really paying for, so to speak, with OpenToonz or Tahoma is really the more advanced animation tools. The plastic tool and the Animate tool. They're very useful, but what I find is doing hand keyframing in Krita is usually just as fast, actually. Once you just get in there and do it, you find you didn't save that much time using Animate tools and or the plastic tool. You know, sometimes you get lucky and the plastic tool works great, and I've got plenty of videos that show that, but no, for me, I'm just kind of happy with what I'm using now. So this is shot number 251, so we're going to save this as, and we're going to call it -251 ping, and then Krita is going to happily replace that in the storyboard, and then ask me if I want to also save it as a Krita file, which I do. For what it's worth, the animation rendering in Krita is about twice as fast, if not faster, than in OpenToonz, by the way. For what that's worth. It's not a big deal, but... Okay, so what we want to do now is we're going to go to Mel. There he is. And we're just going to change his eyes. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my basic pencil, and actually I'm going to hit the G key, which for me is mapped to the freehand path tool, and then I just go control, hit control, and boom, I can sample the underlying color. That's fixed. Hit the B key, grab the same color that I have here. That was another thing I bumped into to OpenToonz. Just resizing the brush and getting the brush to match was not only laborious and unpredictable, but also I made changes to the brush size, and then literally Tahoma, this is not OpenToonz, this is Tahoma, literally Tahoma didn't remember the size change that I made, and I had to keep telling it over again to resize the brush. It's just, there's bugginess. I mean, there's absolutely, I would say a plethora, frankly, of bugs in the Tahoma code, as well as creative programmatic choices that I don't personally agree with. Like, you know, in Krita and in OpenToonz for the last several years, if you hit comma and period, you toggle from one frame to the next, and that's worked in both applications forever. And in Tahoma, that functionality is broken. There's some other functionality that's been in place, like the way you zoom in your scene, that has worked the same for years in OpenToonz, and it's been changed, and the changes are hard-coded into the program where you can't really change them back. So, those are just a bunch of reasons why I don't really dig Tahoma that much. You know, it's a work in progress, and it could be that Jeremy's going to release a new version tomorrow that I just think is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It could definitely happen. But for the time being, I'm just finding I get more work done faster and more reliably in Krita. And, by the way, very significantly, when I've gone back over the whole show, of which at this point there are 22 minutes complete, the shots that invariably look best, feel best, yada yada yada, are the ones I did in Krita. And it's just, it is what it is. Okay, so now, what we got to do is work with Monkey. Okay, so let's hit save. And first thing Monkey's going to do, let's see, we're going to go, I'd say, yeah, right about there, right on, let's say frame 10. All right, so now what we're going to do is grab a kind of a brown color, hitting the freehand path tool, and I'm going to go like that. Boom. And I'm going to insert. Whoa, bad mistake. Okay, I can fix this though. Well, no, I really can't. Unfortunately, I drew into the mel layer. So this is actually the number one problem I have with Krita, and it's not really a problem with Krita, it's a problem with me, is that a zillion times a day I see what I want to do, I start doing it, and then realize I'm in the wrong layer. To the developers of Krita, that would be solved completely and permanently by simply making it so that if I select a cell in the timeline, it also selects the layer. It doesn't, and why it doesn't is I don't really get that, you know, but that's the way it works. So insert. Okay, I'm going to turn on the onion skins, which I rarely do. Now what I'm going to do is I'm hitting the star key, which I have mapped as a hotkey to this preserve alpha. That makes it so that I can't accidentally paint outside the lines. And so now I'm going to go like this and give monkey some flesh tone. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is go a couple frames. Actually, I'm going to make a duplicate here, then go back one, zoom in, hit the G key, sample that color, draw a circle, hit the B key, grab that color, and boom, I just gave him an eye blink. Okay, so let's turn the onion skins off. Mel is sulking. Okay. Alright, and this I want to blur. Okay, again, this would be enormously difficult to do in OpenToonz. To add a blur to one cell, unless you're going to just like use a my paintbrush or something to just blur it by hand, which you could do. But to do what I'm doing right here in OpenToonz would be a royal pain, because you would have to add the motion blur effect in as a post effect. And so what you'd have to do is actually take the one cell that you want to blur and put it on a completely different level so that you can have that level you know, affected by the filter and have nothing else affected by the filter. So what I just did in 2 minutes in Krita, which would have been done in 20 seconds if I hadn't been talking, would be, yeah, I mean, there's no contest. There's no contest. It would be way harder. Boom. Okay. And then we'll just hit insert to get rid of that key. Now, I'm going to take this guy and move it back one. So I'm hitting Alt and then drag, and it just ripples all the frames. Whoops. Yeah, save early, save often, as I like to say. Boom. So these are actually good examples. You know, putting that filter, the motion blur filter, on the tween is kind of a rapid fire decision that it just comes to my mind. I'd like to put a blur on that. And in Krita, boom, done. In OpenToonz, you know, there's a bunch of housekeeping required. It's not a crime, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world, but for me, like I said, kind of sort of no contest. So now what we've got to do is, let's do it this way. Actually, let's sample this color right here. I'm just going to draw his silhouettes. Okay, so now I'm going to hit an insert, put another key here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, can't have alpha lock. Oops, my bad. I had the brush selected instead of the freehand path tool. Okay. Now here I'm going to just hit Control F to duplicate the effect that I just did. Okay. Okay. So now we just want to kind of play with the timing here and make sure it's feeling all right. Okay, yeah. So what I want to do is go a couple frames, boom, bop, right there. Right there, I want to take the G key, and what I'm going to do is get rid of his tail, and then I'll just put it back in. I'm not even paying attention to where it was a moment ago. Actually, I am going to rethink that, because I would like to have the curvature be kind of the opposite. So go here. Oops. How many times a day do I say oops? Okay. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is grab these two keys, and just by selecting that range, okay, I can see a little issue right here. Okay. So now I've been able to solo that. And I guess we'll bloop, bloop. All right. Now I'm going to again do this. Insert a key there. G key, not in erase mode, so I'm hitting the E key. Go like this. Control F. And insert. Okay, one thing with monkey, I want to file save. I want to see about making a color adjustment. Now his color is fine over here, but here he's a little hard to see. Okay, so maybe this is another example of and by the way, I think right here I want to make that slightly bigger. Okay, so another example. I want to make it so that monkey is darker on over here, but not over here. There's a zillion ways we could do it, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit the G key to put the monkey in the group, add another layer, simply create a gradient, and the gradient is going to go from foreground to transparent. The foreground color is going to be black. So what I'm going to do is go foreground to transparent like that, and it did the opposite of what I expected. So let's go foreground to transparent like so. We're going to hit alpha lock, and now what's going to happen is over here it's not going to have any effect, but over here it's going to greatly darken monkey. Okay, and now I can just dial it in just so it looks a little better. File, save. Boom. And if I want to preserve some memory and or whatever, I can always just grab the group, hit Control E, and it'll be baked down, if you will. Just single layer, and boom, our shot is done. Okay, so I've been going for 20 minutes. What I did in 20 minutes with all this motion of monkey and a little color correction and fixing Mel, yada yada yada, 20 minutes for a about a greater than 5-second shot. 20 minutes. Okay. Versus what took about 40 minutes in OpenToonz was this. I will say again with pretty great confidence that this same shot would have taken like 10 minutes in Krita, just because you know, the book, it was already done. I just had to paint the ink on it. So there's 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3 animation keyframes with the transform tool. So boom, boom, boom. Yeah, so you're talking 2 minutes probably to do the book. Mel was already drawn. Erase his eyes. Yeah, just erase his eyes and replace it with that. Put in a second key of his mouth. And then bend him. You know, just use the liquify tool or whatever to just bend or twist him a little bit. Honestly, he really could have been just rotated a little bit and then a little tiny bit of liquify on his head. But basically, so yeah, I'm very confident that that would have taken maybe 10 minutes. Okay, so here, let's hit the old save button and hit Control R. And it's a little easier to read on this other screen, so I'm going to take it up here. And what we're going to do is we're only going to do frames up through, well, let's say 48. And this is another nice thing with Krita is I can just change these numbers to, what is this supposed to be? This is shot 251. Okay, so by just changing this path, Krita intelligently knows to create this folder and the render folder inside of it. It just automatically happens. And when I hit click, it's already done rendering. It's that quick. So it's really strange because under the hood, OpenToonz and Krita both use FFmpeg for rendering. Although I have to say that's for MP4s. Actually, for image sequences, probably OpenToonz is using its own internal code, and that might explain. Well, I guess so would Krita. Actually, come to think of it, I guess neither one of them are using FFmpeg for image sequences. So anyway, suffice to say that the rendering of image sequences is much faster. Not the end of the world. I mean, in this day and age, everything renders pretty quick, but just saying. Usually by the time I start something rendering in Krita, in the time it takes me to switch screens and go to up here to Vegas, which is what I'm working in right now, by the time I get into Vegas and click the button to import the image sequence, it's already done rendering. Usually. Not 100% of the time, but usually. Okay, so let's just see how this plays. We'll go back to here. Doodle doodle doodle. Startles him. Okay, little editorial here. He's gonna go. Boom. We need to just cut away from that a little earlier. So zoom, pop, zoom, boom. Yeah, should be about there. Okay. Boom. Okay, and this is starting a little bit too early. So it's kind of musical. Zoom, bomb, bomb. Not quite. Actually, let's start at the beginning, get the full time. Boom, boom. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not horrible. It's not strictly musical, but it's close. Okay, and so that puts Monkey there, and then we'll cut to the close-up of Mel where he's going to be getting pretty angry at the monkey. So we're going to actually come back to this shot again and have him just turn his head. Now, I will say, let me look back here and see if there's anything we can reuse. Not really. Not really. So what we're going to have to do is take this shot and there's really two ways we could do it. We could turn his head, which is a very bad idea. You shouldn't do a 3D head turn unless you have to, just because it's very time consuming for very little benefit. Whereas what I could do is go from this expression to back to here without the body shift and just have his eyes move. So let's give that a try. If we look at the storyboard, so he's going to be, why you little, and then he's going to leap. All the fun action happens on the wide shot. So having said that, what we need to do is get back to this, and we will do that in the very next video. I expect. Maybe not, but probably. So with that, I will say there will be more later.